You're listening to Cash and Sass. I'm Lisa Marie, your go-to gal for all things money. As the Sassy Wealth Queen and the brains behind the Sassy Wealth Coach, I'm here to take you on a thrilling ride from the financial chaos to sassy and sexy money.
Welcome back, my sassy friend, to another episode of Cash and Sass. I'm Lisa Marie, the Sassy Wealth Queen and the brains behind Sassy Wealth Coach, and of course, this podcast. And with me today, I have Rachel Burns, who is a certified financial planner and a certified divorce financial analyst based in California. She is the founder of True Worth Financial Planning, which helps newly single women feel confident and empowered in managing their finances after divorce or a death of a spouse. Rachel is a nationally recognized expert in women's finances and has been featured in publications including CNN Business, Business Insider, and NerdWallet. Thank you so much for being on my show today. I truly appreciate it. And I'm tickled to have you. And we're just going to dive in. Of course, my listeners know we're going to dive in and we're just going to talk all things money. And one of the things I wanted to talk with you is just your insight, personal stories, and we can go into it. But around that wealth mindset and that wealth management of how important it is to have both in order for us to be able to grow and flourish.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me on, by the way. I would say your mindset is incredibly important when it comes to financial stuff because finances, I always say this, finances are not rocket science. They're not simple. It's complicated stuff, but it's something you can absolutely learn. But you have to have the mindset that you want to keep learning, you want to keep improving, you want to set goals, you want to reach those goals. You can have two people in exact same socioeconomic status, same whatever. And if their mindsets are different, their progress or lack thereof, it could be so different. So mindset has such a huge part of that. And we all have things that have happened in the past and mistakes that we've made. And depending on our mindset, we can either be defined by that and be stuck in that forever and ever, or we can move past that. And it really, I wish that there was some magical way to just if you just do this thing, if you say these 3 words in the mirror or something, your finances will be great. But really
your mindset changes.
you gotta change your mindset.
That's
and then
not going to happen.
There's some things, obviously, in addition to that, but mindset, I think, is really the foundation. And then the wealth management part, that comes later down the line, as you make more progress towards your goals, you start making more money, you start saving, you get more money problems, or, problems that go along with having more stuff to manage. But you don't have to worry about the wealth management first. Start small, work on your mindset, make a commitment to learning, and then you can figure out how to manage your wealth later.
Yeah. See, and what I do it slightly different. And again, I tell my clients there's more than one way to do it. A lot of times we work on the management and the mindset together because a lot of times we're already, my clients come to me, they're already in business. And if they don't figure out having some type of money roadmap to help them, they'll keep struggling. And excuse me, that keeps affecting their mindset. So what I do is it's similar. I start where they're at. And if their mindset is just so tanked in the bucket, then we focus on that. And then, any emergency type thing that needs to be handled immediately with the wealth management, with money management, wealth management, we will. And then if not, then we focus on that because you're right. If you're, I tell people all the time, money mindset, money management, wealth mindset, wealth management, they go hand in hand. And the reason being is because you can have tons and tons and tons and tons of money. And if you don't have the mindset, you have a scarcity mindset, you have the lack mindset, you're still broke.
Yeah.
You're still broke. And because a lot of times you end up spending it faster than you're getting it or whatever that may be. And so I know for me, my mindset was not what it is. I tell people all the time I'm a wealth coach, and then they're like, oh, you've always had an awesome relationship with money. Well, no. Me and money did not get along. I didn't like money. I hated money for many, 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 many years. And it wasn't until after I started my business that money mindset coach said something. And when she said it, it was an aha moment, and she said, if someone treated you like crap, would you stick around? Would you come back? And I'm like, no. All of us were like, no. And she's like, well, then why would money? And I'm like, okay. And I just literally went in, you know how these rabbit holes, like you can go in these rabbit holes when you start searching for stuff? I went into a deep rabbit hole on money mindset, money stories, all the things, and just kept digging and kept researching and kept learning and started doing my own work. And I'm like, okay, this is the reason why this isn't working. This is stopping me. And I tell people all the time, when you keep up leveling in your business, there's going to be a new devil. So every level, there's going to be a new devil. And that's going to be that mindset coming and trying to tell you you're making a mistake, or are you sure you can do this? And it's because you're up leveling to make more money. You're up leveling to make a bigger impact, which means more money. And you have to be able to work on that mindset in order to keep doing that. Because if not, then none of it's going to work. You're going to end up broke again, right? So how do you help your clients focus on the things with the financial planning, especially like after a divorce or after a death, a loved one has died, so that they can see that they can have, a life according to their desires and their values, and they can be okay, or more than okay.
Yeah. And that is the main question that I hear is, am I going to be okay? It's a simple question, but it's a big question. So I work with women who are newly single and have just gone through some really difficult event like divorce, or their spouse passes away. And the majority of the clients I work with were not in charge of the money in their relationship, which is normal. That's a normal thing that happens. Every relationship, there's a certain division of labor. And but what happens after years and years of not really being involved in the finances, they feel really rusty. And when they're all of a sudden forced into this position where they have to manage their finances on their own, they're like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I have. I don't know. Like they just feel so helpless and so scared, on top of all of the other big feelings that they're having about whatever just happened, whether it's divorce or a death. And so it's a really overwhelming time to begin with, but then we stack on a bunch of new financial responsibilities, and it makes people really uncomfortable and really fearful, and then they can't really move forward. And so that's where I come in and help them help them know that you are going to be okay. You're not going to figure everything out right this second, but we are going to come up with a plan so that you know what you need to do, and you know what you need to worry about, and you know what you don't need to worry about. And then you can move on with your life. And then you're going to have more emotional bandwidth to deal with the things that are actually important.
Right. So what do you start them off with? What's normally the first thing for, as far as when it comes to the bills and the expenses and the money and the financial stuff? And me being a wealth coach, I understand all the things that can, be involved in that. What's one of the first things that you normally work with them on? Is it their mindset? I mean, I would say their mindset, because one, in some ways you do both, because there's got to be something they focus on so that they know, right? So they can take care of the bills, because then they're just going to keep piling on, right? And you also work with them, I'm assuming, to help change their mindset, right?
Yeah, I'm not a coach. I'm not a mindset person. I'm a financial planner. I'm a certified financial planner. However, there's a lot of mindset woven into it. And I do
Right.
kind of indirectly address that. And so like when I'm meeting with someone, I'm very gentle. I'm very supportive. And I'm like, look, how you're feeling right now is completely understandable. You're not always going to feel this way. We're going to get through this. It's going to get a lot easier. So I do try to address the mindset stuff. And sometimes, I think, okay, we're going to get together and we're going to make this financial plan. But they do get stuck in ruts sometimes where there's clearly something more going on, and it's more of an emotional thing. And so that does get, that does impact some of the work that I do with them. But, the first thing that I typically do is we figure out what the goals are. Because before I even want to start digging into their statements and their taxes and all that stuff, I'm like, well,
what your goals are.
What are we trying to accomplish? What are the problems that you're trying to solve? What's the point of all this? What do you want? And that gives me an idea of what exactly I need to help them with. And so once we get really clear on the goals are, then I start gathering the data. Because I don't want to spend a whole bunch of time gathering tons and tons of data on something that doesn't matter to them. Maybe some things matter to me that don't matter to them. Right. And sometimes I need to ask for that. But like, I want to know what's important before I start asking them a gazillion details.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Because goals are important, right? I tell my clients and I tell my listeners all the time that, when you're doing this, when you're dealing with your money, when you're looking at your numbers, when you're having your business, it's important that all of the things, the financial plan, the money roadmap, all of those things that you put into place are aligned with your goals, your desires, and your values. And the reason why is because if it's not going to work. Period. Because you're going to feel restrictive or mad or angry that it's not aligned, right? That it's restrictive, that it's not something you want. So I think it's really important. That made me really happy when you said that's the first thing you ask is their goals, because that's what I ask. It's like, okay, what are your goals? What are your desires? And they're like, why are you asking me this? Because it matters. And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, and they're like, what? You mean my meeting? No, I want the big, audacious goals. I want, because a lot of times those big, audacious goals are actually achievable. We just don't think they are because we think they're big, audacious, and we've got something in our head telling us they're not. And then you have me, or you have Rachel, or you have one of my best friends who's also a certified financial planner. And you're able to have someone sit with you and help you show you that those big audacious goals are available. And, y'all being financial planners, y'all were able to do a little bit more delving with the tax returns and plan long future and as far as like the different things. And I'm able to help put together a roadmap that helps you be able to see, okay, this is where I can allocate money for this. I can allocate money for that. I can do that and get you to a certain point. And then the financial planners are able to do more. And I say that because, again, I am not a financial planner. I don't pretend to be, and I have no qualms about telling people, nope, that's out of my wheelhouse. I can refer you to here, or here. And I do. I have a referrals, but it's important to realize that when you have those goals and if you tell us, especially, I'll tell them, I want your goals. I want them big. I want them small, medium, big, audacious. I want them all. But when you tell us that, a lot of times I'm analytical. So that's the reason why I can look at a spreadsheet and I can see the money. People joke at me. It's like I can go look at the money in their bank account and I see their goals and I have their expenses, and they're like, she makes magic happen, because I can say, okay, you can allocate this here, here, and here. And now you keep doing this. As long as this stays the same, then you're good. This is where you put it and you'll be able to reach this by this amount of time. And, that's where the CFO comes in, because I'm a CFO and a wealth coach. And so I'm able to intertwine the two to help them be able to, my goal is to help them be able to grow their business to where they're thriving and not just surviving. I say all the time, I want to help women be able to stand on their own 2 feet, whether they need to or not, because then later in life, when they need to, they've never had, they don't know anything about it, right? Now all of a sudden they're having to stand on their own 2 feet, and they're like, oh shit. You can't go run and bury your head in the sand then, because it's just you. And it's scary. I know firsthand. It's very scary. One of the other things that you put on the questionnaire, and I found you and I are alike in this area, is that in 2008, when the market crashed, the housing market crashed, you had to do a foreclosure.
Mm-hmm.
And in 2008, when the housing market crashed, I had just built my house and had a condo that was being sold, and unbeknownst to me, it was appraised for more than, apparently, I don't know if it was appraised for more than what it was worth, but because they snafu'd so many, that when it was reappraised when the market crashed, it was now not appraised for as much. And this amount of money that I had, or the money that I had, oh crap, what's it called? Okay, see, I have a brain fart,
Equity?
y'all. Live in moment. Yes, thank you. I go sit here going, I know the word, but I couldn't think of it. I had so much equity built up in it, and the person had been approved for the house, right? And this just shows you what happened is when the housing market crashed, she no longer qualified for the condo. And then the condo no longer appraised for what they originally appraised it for. Now, that's because people were being approved that shouldn't have been approved. And that's because they were appraising houses and condos or whatever at much higher things. And so when the market crashed, all of a sudden the things that were worth so much at one point were now not worth nearly as much. So at one point in time, I probably did have equity in the condo, but because of the housing market crash, that equity disappeared. Like literally, y'all. I mean, it went poof. You talk about money disappearing, that money was gone. It was like no longer there, anything. And I ended up having to do a short sale on it. So I wouldn't have to foreclose. But I found myself, instead of being ahead in the house that I had at that time, being behind. And, you mentioned, and this is really important, that's why I'm going to say you learned a lot of lessons, and it took you several years to move past that, because I'm sure there was, even though it was out of your control, most of the things were out of my control. There were some things that were out of my control, and there were some things that weren't. Moving past that shame, and then realizing that you may have over leveraged yourself to begin with, right? Or you may have took some uncalculated risks. What are some of the things that you learned from that, like that you would pass on to the listeners or to your clients or to anybody, who is may be in that position at some point, you know what I mean? To understand that debt is okay to a certain extent. I tell people this all the time. There's not all debt is bad. There's good and bad. And a lot of times when it's bad is when we're over leveraging ourselves and we're not being strategic and knowing what we're doing.
So your question is what I would tell people, what lessons?
Yeah, like what are some of the lessons that you learned from it?
Yeah. So there's a couple sides to that. One is there was a lot that was beyond my control. I obviously couldn't control what was happening in the real estate market and the stock market and all that stuff. But
absolutely.
But I have to take a lot of responsibility there, because I made some decisions that weren't great, that put myself in a position where that happened. And I am responsible for that. Like, that was avoidable, and that was a learning experience. But that was a learning experience. That was not a life-defining thing. That's not like, oh, I am this person because I made this mistake. I bought that house when I was 22 years old. Like that was a problem in itself. I had not the maturity needed to be a homeowner and to make decisions with large amounts of money. And so that I'm like, okay, I made a mistake. I learned from it. That's not going to happen again. You know, but at the same time, like, I don't need to beat myself up forever and ever about that. That's not, that happened to a lot of people during that time. And even if it wasn't during that time, the foreclosures happen to people for various reasons. And that doesn't have anything to do with who you are as a person. And that doesn't mean you're doomed to like doing dumb stuff in the future. So I did feel bad about it. I felt embarrassed mostly because I was a financial advisor. You know, I was a brand new one at the time, but like I was in that industry and I'm like, this is really embarrassing that someone's financial advisor has a foreclosure on their record. Like that was really embarrassing to me from like a career perspective. But like, I was like, I just got to get over that. That doesn't change who I am. And so I did get over it. And now I don't care. And now I'm like, all right, it happens. Stuff happens to all of us. We all make mistakes. We all experience things where things happen to us that are beyond our control, and things happen as a result of our actions. And we just do our best and we learn and we move on.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I mean, I tell my listeners, it's on my website, I tell my clients all the time, there's nothing anyone can tell me that will surprise me, shock me, or go, because I'll be 51 in July, and I've been through 2 foreclosures, a short sale, and a Chapter 7 bankruptcy. I have rebuilt my credit. This last time is 4 times. In my from adulthood, from the 20s to the 50s, so in the last 30 years, okay? And I don't laugh about it saying, haha, it's funny. I used to beat myself up because I was newly married and the fiber optic market crashed. And again, that's out of our control, right? So when the fiber optic market crashed, he lost his job. We went from $90,000 to 18 like that. The house, the brand new truck, the stuff that we had as newlyweds that we went out and bought and financed and put all this money in, we had no business doing right after we got married, right? And it was embarrassing because I'm good with numbers, and I can't make 18 turn into 90. It just doesn't work. So when we lost all that income, there was no choice. And we made uncalculated risks, not paying attention to what we were doing. A brand new truck, a brand new house. We didn't need a brand new truck and a brand new house at the same time. We should have waited. We had one vehicle. We could have made it work. But again, we were young and we weren't, we were 25, 26, not being the smartest in the world, right? And so the Chapter 7 bankruptcy was just the way it was. And that, of course, the house doesn't go in the bankruptcy. That goes into the foreclosure. And, I learned from it. And later on, the housing market crashed. And I thought I had learned from it, but apparently I hadn't, because I had taken, I all of a sudden qualified for all kinds of stuff, okay? Credit, all kinds of credit. So I was able to get my new washing machine and dryer, all these things. And I shouldn't have done all of that at one time. Now, I'm a lot smarter, a lot more strategic. And the whole point to that is, yes, life happens. Sometimes we make the wrong mistakes. Sometimes we make decisions based off the information we have at the time, that if we'd have known more information, we wouldn't have made. But that doesn't mean that's who we are. I'm not a person who's always going to file bankruptcy or foreclosure or never own a house or any of those things. It's something that happened. And I say that because if I can go from all of that and then later in life have to be on food stamps and get off of food stamps to make in six figures, not coming from any money, then anybody can do it, because it's all in that mindset and knowing what the world is going on with your money and being smart about the debt that you're doing and being strategic, especially in your business and in personal. And so the reason why I brought that up was because, you were saying don't over leverage yourself, right? And that's something I think we don't think of in the moment when we're doing those things. I know I didn't. And now when I go to make big investments or big spending decisions like a washing machine or a dryer or a freezer, I literally sit back, go and look at the numbers, look at everything, go shop, I analyze it. I do. And I give myself at least 24 hours before I make the decision. And I make sure I have the pros and cons of two different ways to go, so that I'm making a strategic and best decision possible, and I'm not just jumping in. And I think that that's important, because a lot of times we just snap our fingers, make the decision, and we don't look at, okay, am I over leveraging myself? Is this going to cause an issue, or do I have the money here that I can use? Those kind of things, right? Do you talk to your clients about how to put money up into savings and to plan for the things that they want? I mean, as a financial planner, I'm sure you do. But especially as in being newly single, I'm sure that that's something, they're like, I want to be able to do this, or I want to be able to do that. You work with them to fit that into their plan, right? I mean,
yeah, there's no money that's unaccounted for. There's, we set aside the emergency fund. That's step one. Then, we set aside the savings for the other kind of sort of short-term goals. And then we have savings for retirement. And whatever money is not sucked up by one of those categories, that's your discretionary spending. And I don't get like super into the budgeting and the savings, because usually when someone works with me, they already have that. But they don't necessarily know what to do with it. They just, even if someone has a lot of money, that doesn't mean that they're immune from bad habits or bad decisions. And so, rather than just like, I use my debit card and it's attached to something, and I haven't really looked back to see how much money is in there or how long it's going to last. I mean, I help them figure out, okay, if you're spending at this rate, this is how long that lasts. And then we need to have a plan for where else the money comes from after that. Or like, it's just looking at the big picture, because it's really easy to get very focused on the day-to-day. I'm just using my debit card, or I'm buying stuff online, or I'm making these kind of smaller financial decisions that end up adding up to something big. And if there's no context, if you're not thinking about your overall finances and your overall goals, then you're just throwing darts. Like it's just there. It's like kind of aimless.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and similar, I work with them to create a money roadmap, which is, it's another word for budget, but it's all encompassed. So it's their values and their goals, their yearly expenses, the monthly. And one of the first things that I'll do is I have them do, because I want them to become aware of them swiping that debit card or credit card. And they'll do a deep dive on 3 months of their statements. And I have them separated into categories. And I cannot tell you how many times someone will come back going, oh my God, I didn't know I was spending that much money at Starbucks or Out-Eat or whatever it is. It's normally Starbucks or Out-Eat meals. And, and they'll come and go, and I'm like, it's, because you just said you were swiping that card, and they're like, and why did you make me look at it? I said, because now it's here. Because if I'd have done it and just gave you a total, it wouldn't be here. You saw it because I tell them you have to print it out. Waste paper. Yes, I'm asking you to kill a tree. I do not want you to highlight it on computer. I want you to print it out, hand in paper, because it does something at not being on the computer. You looking at it on paper, printed, it does something. I don't know why, but it does. So, and actually highlighting and looking at it and then adding it up. And that's when I go, okay, you're spending this much money here at Starbucks or out to eat. Is that what you want to spend monthly? No. Okay. How much do you want to spend? And they'll say a number and then go, but I don't know how. As well, I'm going to explain to you how we can do that. Instead of you going to Starbucks 7 days a week, go to Starbucks 4 days. Okay. Because they'll say, oh, I'm just going to stop going. Nope. And they're like, why? I'm like, because you're not going to stick to that. You've been going 7 days a week for however how many years. You're not going to just automatically stop going. That's like a restrictive fad diet and they don't work. They don't. So cut it back instead. And you can cut it back to 4 days and then eventually cut it back some more if you want. Great. But my clients are amazed at how much money they save when they cut 3 days. If they've been going 7 and they cut 3 days out, they're like flabbergasted. And I'm like, okay. And now, this thing that you wanted that you said you couldn't afford, you can put this money here. Or, that thing that you said that you didn't understand how you were going to pay for it. Or how you're going to put money in retirement. Okay, well, here's part of it. Let's see what else we can find, because a lot of times we have what I call money leaks. And it's like you're saying, you're swiping the card and you're not thinking about it and you don't look back to see how much. And it's those little amounts, right? I mean, the $5, the $10 here. And I don't know about anybody else, but lately, who has been able to go and get food anywhere for lunch for less than $10 to $12 every single time?
Yeah.
So you $10 times 5 days, that's $50 a week. You do the math on how much that is a month, and we'll see how many listeners go, oh my gosh. Because, and so when we make it in their forefront of their brain, that's when, like you said, them becoming knowledgeable. Now we can take some of this and plan towards those longer term goals. And I think that's truly important. I love what you do. And I love the fact that you work with women who have found themselves newly single and they don't know how to stand on their own 2 feet, because that's what drove my passion, is because I think it's just so important for us to be able to. Society doesn't really help us in that area very much. Yeah. And it's the reason why I started my podcast, because I'm tired of money being such a taboo subject. And so I think it's really, really important. And I want my sassy listeners to get out of this that no matter what your circumstances are, no matter what is happening or going on, you are not that. It's just something that happened. And if it happened yesterday or last week or last month, then just like Rachel said, okay, it happened. It doesn't define you. It happened. It was a lesson. Learn from it. What can you do today to move you this way not this way, not sideways, but forward, instead of, looking behind you. And I think that's just really, really important in today's age. Rachel, you have a free offer for the listeners, and will you please tell them what that is?
Yeah. So I have a ebook that is 5 things that newly single women should do first with their finances. And it's a quick read. It's simple, just simple things you can do that'll get you on the right track.
Oh, I love it. I think that's really important, and we will make sure that the link is in the show notes. Thank you so much, Rachel, for being on my show today. I appreciate it. And my sassy friend, until next time, remember to stay sassy. Bye.
Thanks for joining us this week on Cash and Sass. Check us out on social media and on our website at www.transcendentwealthco.com, where you can download my free Money Story Start Guide. The website again is www.transcendentwealthco.com. And as always, subscribe to the show to catch every new episode and leave us a review so we can continue to bring you fresh content. And remember, yes, it is possible to have sassy and sexy money. See you next week.